Do you feel that people from the South Asian continent are treated in a different manner by customs, by immigration, by authorities, as compared to people from EU countries or perhaps even the Australian seas in those continents?
No one should be differentiated because of their skin color or their ethnic background, their sexual orientation, their race, their gender. But the reality is we don't live in an ideal world, and that does happen. I've been at airports in America where an officer has laughed and joked at me, laughed and joked with me and let me in. And I've also been to one where one has told me, stop smiling, this isn't funny, you're not here to crack jokes, you answer what I do. And sometimes I've been pulled out of a line by these guys who look like FBI figures.
Why has immigration suddenly become such a big, blown up issue?
Britain seems to have this attitude, and it's always had it, that we are Fortress Britain. You're right. When we start treating marriage as a game and people as items, then this, or as a business deal, what essentially happens is people go from here after spending all their life in here at the behest of their mum and dad. They marry someone they've never met, never spent a day with, never spent a couple of years with, don't know who the personality or person is, doesn't know if they've got anything in common, and are expected then to spend the whole life with them. Get the correct advice from the correct person, from the qualified person. Don't go by hearsay or what somebody down pubs told you or somebody in the temple has told you, and plan everything.
This is Lyca XTRA, the sound for the British Asian generation, a part of the Lyca Radio Network.
Hello there, my name is Rajah and you're listening to Lyca XTRA, part of the Lyca Radio Network, where we celebrate British Asians and British Asian stories, one conversation at a time. And with me today is a gentleman known as the immigration guru, known as the settlement expert, because when it comes to immigration, when it comes to settling, Harjap Bhangal is the man. Now, first of all, I'm going to say a very warm welcome to you on Lyca XTRA. Hello.
Hello, thank you. Hello to everybody who's watching. Thanks, and it's great to be on the Lyca XTRA podcast. And thanks to the Lyca Network and yourself, Deep, for inviting me on.
You're more than welcome. I'm going to get straight to the point because this is an issue that is very, very sensitive. And a lot of people have been asking me. Immigration has a lot of connotations to it. Immigration has a lot of interpretations to it. As a lawyer, please tell me in layman's terms for my audience and myself, what is immigration?
Literally, immigration is movement. So it's moving from one place to another for various reasons. It could be for the safety of your life. It could be for your economic betterment. It could be to move to along with other members of your family. But it's a reality of life that people move, and people don't stay stagnant in one area. And immigration is all about that, about the movement of people and the various ways in which people move.
Is it the same as saying displacement?
No, displacement is it is a form of immigration as well, but displacement is when you're forced to move or you're moved due to events outside of your control. So say if someone bombs your house and then you're displaced from that area because you have to move. Immigration can be willful movement, or it could be movement like displacement where you're forced to move. It could be you're forced to seek refuge, or it could be it's essentially movement for various amount of reasons.
So let's get this clear. Immigration is a choice.
It can be. It can be a choice. So that's called economic migration, where you migrate for reasons of your choice and for financial betterment, or you just want to go to a sunnier country like Dubai or Spain, like a lot of people do for the weather. So you want to go there, or you want to move for tax purposes to save tax, like people do to go to Dubai. Or it could be forced upon you. So it could be that your visa's about to expire somewhere and you have to move to another country because you're not allowed to stay somewhere. So it can be forced and it can be voluntary.
Okay, so going into a little bit of immigration, a lot of people stay, and I want to clarify this.
Yes.
One's ethnic status, i.e., whether you're from South Asia or whether you're from the European Union or whether you're from Australia and the other territories, does a person's ethnic status matter in the terms of the amount of power they have or right they have to immigration? Let me give you a quick example so that we clear this up.
Go for it.
Some people say that people from the South Asian region,
Yes.
their points that they need to get in are lower as compared to, say, if you're coming in from Australia and New Zealand, you're already walking into the country with a higher economic status. Is that true?
It all depends on what country you're coming from and the relationship the country you're going to has with that country. So some countries have relationships with different countries and they have different treaties, and in that they have different immigration policies. For instance, the UK or England has a different relationship with Ireland, Southern Ireland, i.e. Dublin, where it is. And people with Irish passports, they don't need visas to come and work in the UK, stay here, study here, because they have a different relationship. Now, Ireland is still in the EU and has a different relationship with the EU. Now, Britain is outside, UK is outside of the EU. We have a different relationship from the EU. So if a EU member wants to go to Ireland, they don't. If a French national wants to go to Ireland, he doesn't need a visa. He can just go there, start working and staying there. If a French national now wants to come to England and study here or work here, they have to get a visa in the same way as someone from India has to get a visa. So different countries have different relationships with someone. Canadians and Americans have different relationships between themselves. The UK has a different relationship with people from Ireland, has a different relationship from people from the EU, and a different relationship with people from the Commonwealth countries and other countries. That all depends on the country you're from and the country you're going to. And a lot of it is potluck as to where you're born.
Right.
As to how much power your passport holds.
I'm going to stop you there because that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And you've explained the difference, say, between an EU status and a non-EU status.
Yes.
But I want to get down to the nitty-gritty of it.
Yes.
When it comes to being treated as a person.
Yes.
Now, what I'm talking about are things like, or places like, when they reach the airport, when they reach sea level and things like that. How are they treated? Do you feel that people from the South Asian continent are treated in a different manner by customs, by immigration, by authorities, as compared to people from EU countries or perhaps even the Australian seas in those continents? Is there a template? And I say that possibly because of language barriers. I can't speak English. I can only speak Hindi. But a lot of people from Australia say, I can only speak Australian, but Australian is like English.
Yeah.
So are they treated differently?
Well, the fact of life is, in this world, you're treated not equally, but according to your status and your situation that you're born in. A millionaire or billionaire is treated differently to, say, a beggar even it could be from the same country. So if Mr. Ambani or Adani from India or Amitabh Bachchan goes to an airport in the USA, he'll get treated a lot more differently than, say, someone who polishes shoes, who just about managed to scrounge for a flight to getting somewhere, who can get there. That's just a reality of life. There are countries that have different policies and look at people differently according to their economic status. So, and how much they have and how much they can contribute to the country, how much it's a likelihood of them returning back home, especially when you come for a visit. If you're going to stay here, are you going to work? Are you going to pay tax? Do you have a skill set which is going to better this country? So a doctor from India who's going to come here to work will be treated more than, say, better than, or looked at more favorably than, say, a farmer or someone who works on a field from India. But that's just naturally in life. Even in India, they're treated differently by their own government according to that. So there is differences all over. And some countries do have policies for different economic areas. So people from Africa and Asia, Southeast Asia, might be treated differently to, say, someone from Australia and New Zealand. Now, when you go Southeast Asia, or when you look at Asia, you could have two countries next to each other, like India and China, and you could have a Chinese person coming here with an amount of wealth for a weekend to shop at X, Y, and Z Oxford Street. They'll be treated a lot differently because they've got money in their pocket and they're going to stay at a swanky hotel than someone from India who perhaps hasn't got that, or someone from India who's just coming to visit their son and stay in their 3-bedroom house with them for, say, a couple of months. That's the actual discretion, and it's the choice of the country who's letting you in. Every country has a right to control its borders and decide who can come into its country and who not. And they exercise that via a system called the visa system.
You've actually answered my next question, which was the relationship between money and immigration.
Yeah.
So I want to dig deeper into the first point that I'm asking, because I think we're missing a very important point here, and that is people of perhaps South Asian origin, people from Nigeria, people from Africa. Are they treated physically, is what I'm talking about, differently as compared to people from different other non-African or Asian states? And I mean, let's say they come to the airport, something is not right. Are they treated the same, would you say, by an immigration officer who may be in a situation where he or she needs to ask them a few rather personal, difficult questions?
The answer to that is, in an ideal society, they shouldn't be. No one should be differentiated because of their skin color or their ethnic background, their sexual orientation, their race, their gender. But the reality is, we don't live in an ideal world, and that does happen. So even females get treated differently than males. Children get treated differently than adults. If your sexual orientation is X, Y, and Z persuasion, you might get treated differently than someone else, someone who's, say, heterosexual. So there is a difference, and that all depends on the officer who stops you and is interviewing you and is deciding to let you in or not. It's totally down to their discretion. You cannot try and police the way that they think and the way that they're brought up. You tell them this is a set of guidelines that you should play the rules by, and there is a guide and a code for that. However, once they're one-on-one with somebody, no one is really knowing, except for the two people there in that room or at that counter, as to what's going through the officer's mind and how, with what sort of angle or connotations he's asking the questions that he does.
So it's a very objective view rather than a subject.
It is indeed. It's very much hit and miss as opposed to who you've seen. I've been at airports in America where an officer has laughed and joked at me, laughed and joked with me and let me in. And I've also been to one where one has told me, stop smiling, this isn't funny, you're not here to crack jokes, you answer what I do. And sometimes I've been pulled out of a line by these guys who look like FBI figures. So it's very much hit and miss. It's all about who you get.
Does that treatment happen to you in the UK as well?
Not in the UK, to be fair. That hasn't happened in the UK. It's happened to me in the USA, going from Canada to the USA. It's happened to me to entering the USA. And there's a lot of actually controversy at the moment surrounding USA immigration officers and how they're shooting people in the face, etc., and stopping people and even arresting American citizens and locking them up. So there's a whole different thing. But the UK's been actually one of the more civilized, I would say, and a more politer places. But in India, I've had people stopping me and making connotations saying, when I've spoken English like me and you're speaking now at the counter, and I know Hindi, and I know Hindi very well, and I know Punjabi very well. So, but I've decided to speak in English at the counter. So I've been like, because of the officer's inability to speak English, हिंदी भूल गए क्या, बाहर जाके हिंदी भूल गए क्या? ना सर, नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं भूला, पर आपने इंग्लिश बोलने की कोशिश की तो मैंने आपको जवाब इंग्लिश में दिया. आपका ये जो फॉर्म है इंग्लिश में लिखा हुआ है जो मैंने भरा, तो मैं इंग्लिश में बोल रहा हूँ. हमने तो कुछ नहीं बोला सर, पर शायद अगर आप कोशिश करें कि आपके काउंटर में जो आएगा सारे हिंदी थोड़ी बोलेंगे. नो एवरीवन विल स्पीक हिंदी, तो उनके साथ उनको आप कहेंगे कि हिंदी बोलो. आपने मेरा रंग देख के अस्यूम किया कि मुझे हिंदी बोलनी चाहिए, और मैं तो पैदा ही इंग्लैंड में हुआ, और आपने ये भी अस्यूम किया कि मैं इंग्लैंड जाके मैंने हिंदी भूल ली. जो मैंने सीखी ही नहीं हिंदी, वो तो शुक्र करो अमिताभ बच्चन और धर्मेंद्र जी का और जितेंद्र जी का, जिनकी फिल्में मैंने देखी कि उन्होंने मुझे सिखाई.
Okay, so what for those of you who don't understand Hindi, basically what you're saying is, how did you assume that I was able to speak Hindi?
That's right.
When the person in, for example, Heathrow Airport will not assume that the person coming from India or Canada or wherever speaks English.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and
Right.
and Heathrow, if you don't speak the language, they will get you an interpreter.
Yes.
Who speaks the language. Or some of the officers, a lot of them are multilingual.
So just to sort of catch you on that one, because this is the point I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
In your opinion, as an immigration specialist,
Yeah.
would you say that immigration officials, either in anywhere, be it the ports, be it the airports, be it the train stations, wherever, because you've got them at King's Cross, do we treat people coming into this country as immigrants in a nicer form or are they treated in a less nicer form as compared to the immigration officers around the world?
If you compare it to, depends what country you compare it to. If you compare it to America, I would say the UK is much better, nicer. If you compare it to Canada, I'd say it's on par. In fact, Canada, when you enter, it actually says welcome. Even in Punjabi and Hindi, it says welcome to Canada on the board. So just like it says welcome to Southall on Southall Station, right? So it says it in Punjabi. So you can say Canada are equally as friendly. India, I've seen, sometimes they're friendly, sometimes they're not friendly, sometimes they're, obstructive. So it's all depends on where you're going. I went to Japan as well. I found them pretty strict and quite rigorous. Remember, immigration officers there, they're a form of police, but for borders. So their job is to literally be a police for borders. And it might not necessarily be that the way they go around their job requires them to be nice. So sometimes their job is to not be nice and to get to the bottom of something where they suspect something.
Okay, so look, we've been hearing for a long time now, since the Conservative government, that Britain is an island. Britain cannot take any more people. We are spending too much on immigration, hotels, and putting people up illegally. Why has immigration suddenly become such a big, blown-up issue? Because in the 70s it wasn't. In the 80s it wasn't. In the 90s it started, but now it's almost spoken about socially. Why has immigration become such a big factor?
I think it's because of a few reasons. One, say perhaps it's a bit now more in your face than what it was. So when people walk in the 1970s, when you walk down London, I mean, I grew up in Essex in a little village called Rainham, sandwiched between Dagenham and Tilbury, which were both National Front and BNP strongholds. So I went to a school in Upminster where I was the only Asian in my whole secondary school. Someone who might have grown up in Birmingham or South or West London or Ilford, they don't understand that. They say, well, hold on, all our mates were Asians and all our classmates were Asians. Well, mine weren't. So the first time I really interacted with Asian people my age, kids apart from my cousins and people like that, was when I went to university in Kingston. So I think when people see things change and it changes from the status quo, then people decide, they think, well, hold on, I don't recognize a place where I'm brought up in. We often say that as well. As Asians who lived in Southall in 1970 and the 80s, I get elders now say to me, Southall isn't the same anymore. And I said, what do you mean it's not the same? There's always been Asians here and there's Asians here now. No, this new lot aren't like the old lot. And when we sit there, and there's actually tensions between like people of the old people who came here. Yeah, and Asians. So it's right. The reason is now some people have picked up on that and they think different is dangerous and they think different should be fearful. And instead of embracing that, they've decided, well, hold on, we want to go back to the status quo. Immigration has been a problem, or has been raised for people who did raise it. People like Oswald Mosley, people of the Rivers of Blood speech. They were all in the 70s, the National Front marching down Southall and, the Hamborough pub, riots there. There's always been the riots in Birmingham. There's always been an issue regarding immigration. And it's more, Britain seems to have this attitude, and it's always had it, that we are Fortress Britain. You're right. We have been hearing that Britain is an island. We're impenetrable. We can decide our own thing. We are Britain and we've ruled the world, 66% of it. And now how come people are coming into our country and availing our services?
Good point, because that brings me into the next point. As an immigration specialist, as an immigration guru, you've mentioned a lot about particular pockets of Britain where certain ethnic minorities have settled.
Yeah.
But if I was to ask you, what is the single most common factor for immigration rejection, what is it?
It's the likelihood of people not going back. So when you come on a student visa or a visit, it's literally for that. If I want to go and study in, say, Kenya, my idea should be studying and coming back. When you go to uni, when I went to Kingston, my idea wasn't to stay on in Kingston, it was to come back home. When you went to university, I'm sure you went and came back home. However, when people decide to come here, even for a visit, and not go back for 20 years, I mean, I remember...
Sorry, let's get this point straight. you're saying, are you actually saying that one of the main reason why a lot of immigration
visa is refused,
legals
yeah.
and visa restrictions is because they are afraid that the
people will
person
not
in
go
front
back.
of them standing there is saying, they might not go back.
Exactly.
How do they make that decision?
They make it from looking at their financial background and how much money they've got in their pocket and bringing here.
Yeah.
I.e., if someone's coming to stay here for 3 months on a visit
Yeah.
and they've got £500 in total, how are they going to afford to stay in hotels? So they will think that that person's probably going to work here illegally in order to fund himself. If someone's got no relatives here and says, I want to explore this country for 4 months, has no plans, no hotel bookings, no accommodation to stay, no credit cards to spend, hasn't have a job back home to return to, is unemployed, they're going to see the likelihood of this guy returning doesn't seem great. If someone's coming to study and they ask him the questions about what's your course, where's your uni, how much is your uni accommodation, and he doesn't have the answers, he or she doesn't have the answers, or they can hardly speak the language, let alone do a degree level course, then they'll make an assessment on that. So that's what immigration officers are for.
So turning that question around,
Go on.
You've told me why I would
Reject people.
Why you would reject people? Why would you accept people? What is the biggest common factor for an acceptance?
Because
if I can even ask that.
Yeah, no, of course you can. And so the common factor is that your case is properly prepared. You have the answers to the question which your officer is going to ask you, and you can convince that person at the counter who's making a decision that yes, you are coming in for the purpose you have stated you are coming in. So that's the key. So if I say I'm coming to study, and he asks me all the questions about my course, about where I'm going to study, where I'm going to stay, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to work part-time, if I'm going to, do I have funds, have I paid the fees? And I answer all of them correctly and I have all the evidence, I'm more likely to be let in and more likely to convince him. If I start going, oh, sorry, I don't know what you're saying, me no English, and, it's likelihood of him letting me in is going to grow down and down and down.
But it seems like, to me, from what I'm gathering, and again, I'm going to ask for your clarification here.
Yeah.
It all ultimately boils down to the immigration officer being convinced.
Yeah, of course.
That's a bit of an opinion, isn't it? Where's the law? Surely immigration and the reason why you either get accepted or rejected is because of a set of rules.
A set of rules.
But you just said, hang on, it's down to his opinion or her opinion. Which one is it?
Who enforces the rules? People. Who makes the rules? People. Who's the executive of the rules? People. So we know, so take yourself in the role of a police officer. Yeah. You know what the rules are as a police officer. But there and then the situation, you have to make a call according to that. You know, as a police officer, you can't hit anybody. However, there might be a situation where someone's got their hands round your throat and trying to throttle you to death, or he's got a gun or a knife and coming at you, and you might have to hit someone. And so there's a law for that. There's a set of rules, but once again, you have to, the person who's going to enforce them laws and it's going to make sure it's just a person. And it's not a machine system. It's not something where you've convinced the law, that's it. If you feel that the law's been wrongly applied by that person, that's when you need a lawyer to challenge decisions and have appeals, and you get a right to appeal and it kicks in. So if there's a law for, say, firing an employee, if you can fire an employee and you might think I fired him according to the law, if the employee thinks you haven't fired him according to the law, they can take you to something called a tribunal, take you to an appeal. And as a boss, you will have to justify in front of a judge how you thought that you applied the law, whereas the person who feels that you haven't applied the law will have to justify why they think you broke the law and didn't apply the law.
Are you saying that tribunals and employment cases are the same as immigration?
No, well, there is a tribunal. There's tribunals made for immigrations. So when an immigration decision needs to be challenged, it's actually challenged in something called a tribunal. There's an immigration tribunal, immigration courts, there's immigration judges, and then the cases get taken to High Court, to Supreme Courts, to the European courts. It can go as far as it wants. It's up to the person who's taking it. And this is what the courts are there. They're there to make sure that governments and government employees fairly apply the law and don't misuse and misapply the law.
Under what circumstances would you and or your company ever say, no way, I'm not taking this case, please find another lawyer?
If we feel that the law has been correctly applied by the person making the decision. So if someone's coming over and says, I want to study a 3-year bachelor's course, but they have no knowledge of English and they can't even hold a conversation with me. And then I would say, well, why do you can't challenge this decision because they're right. And because you don't know how to English, how are you going to study this course? They're going to teach you this course in English, not in Hindi medium.
So if the person doesn't understand English or doesn't know English, you would quite happily reject them, is it?
Yeah, of course, because then how are we going to win that case? We're going to go in front of a judge and look silly. The judge is going to ask me, as a lawyer, do you think that this person who's refusing to talk English or can't talk English, doesn't even understand what I'm saying, do you think he can study a 3-year course? And I'll be hard pressed to try and convince the judge that my guy who says nothing apart from thank you, please, sorry, is going to study a 3-year course.
But it seems a bit ironic because if we're going to move this particular point of view forward, there's many, for example, I know people whose parents have said, I want my son to marry a girl from India.
Yeah.
I want my daughter to marry a girl from, I don't know, Kenya or something, right? Who must be totally Punjabi, Gujarati, with the same kind of values. Fine, fair enough. I understand you want to keep the lineage or whatever is in your cultural aspect. When they come here and they're married and everything's done, and they sadly turn out to be having an affair with somebody else and run away, which has happened to quite a few people.
Numerous occasions.
They are not tested for their English. They are not tested about how much money they've got, and they are not tested about what kind of immigration status they've come from. They are simply someone's wife or husband and have come here on their visa.
Yeah, but
that's a bit unfair, isn't it? If they can't speak English, but they're admitted in, you won't take somebody because they don't speak English because the judge won't like them.
Well, every spouse who comes in has to do an English test, a basic level English test. And then the spouse, remember, is invited by someone British over. So you got this British person saying, this is my wife. She's lovely. I'm very happy with her. Please let her come and join me. 2 weeks later, actually, not really what I wanted. Yeah, model's not working out. This is not what I ordered, essentially. Yeah. All right. Can we send her back? So when we start treating marriage as a game and people as items, then or as a business deal, what essentially happens is people go from here. After spending all their life in here at the behest of their mum and dad, they marry someone they've never met, never spent a day with, never spent a couple of years with, don't know who the personality or person is, doesn't know if they've got anything in common, and are expected then to spend their whole life with them. That's almost like me introducing Deep to somebody in the next 5 minutes and saying, you're getting married on Friday, and you're saying, well, hold on, you would not do that here. If we were dating people from the UK here, we'd go out with them for a year or two and see what their habits are, at least for 6 months. You wouldn't agree to a marriage without having seen them or seen them once for 5 minutes. This is what we go into. And when you do that, you're setting yourself up for a risk of failure. And also this whole thing about, well, this is not what I wanted. This is not how someone's supposed to behave. You're not ordering robots. They're not machines. They're people.
I'm going to have to be very brief now because time is of the essence.
No problem.
It's been very good talking, but I have to quickly ask you this.
Go on.
What advice would you give as an immigration guru, as an immigration lawyer, to anybody out there that is suffering either immigration problem or a relative? And I need one sentence because time is so short.
Get the correct advice from the correct person, from the qualified person. Don't go by hearsay or what somebody down the pubs has told you or somebody in the temple has told you. And plan everything. This is a minefield. If everything's planned, you'll navigate it well.
That's a lovely answer, and I'm going to end it on that answer because I think that that's exactly what people need to understand. Immigration and law is something you don't get from the pub with a friend or a conversation over a cup of coffee. It is a legal, important piece of advice that we all need. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for listening, talking, and explaining everything about immigration. Thanks for listening to Lyca XTRA, part of the Lyca Radio Network. Now, as I said, my name is Deep Rajah, and if you'd like to get involved in our podcasts, you can comment, you can post, or you can even email Lyca XTRA on lycaradio.com. because we really value your comments. It's through these comments and through your ideas that we'd like to move forward. So please do that. What can I say? It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Likewise.
Sir. And I hope that immigration continues to grow through your advice too.
Let's hope everyone does things correctly and we don't have any problems.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
This is Lyca Extra, the sound for the British Asian generation. A part of the Lyca Radio Network.